Have you ever stopped to think about why some products, like Spotify or Duolingo, just weave themselves into our daily lives, while thousands of others, well, they just vanish? It's not luck, and it's definitely not magic. It's a process. Today, we're opening up the playbook that separates the smash hits from the forgotten failures. Let's dive in.
Okay, get ready for this number because it's a big one. Of the 30,000 new products that get launched every single year, a staggering 95% fail. Think about that. That is a massive graveyard of wasted time, money, and brilliant ideas. So, what's the number one reason for this epic failure rate?
Well, according to MIT's Svava Gronfeld, it boils down to one huge mistake. Companies are busy building things they think people want instead of what people actually need. You know, this usually happens because of some internal bias or maybe listening to the loudest voice in the room instead of, the actual customer. It's a simple error with absolutely massive consequences.
And that right there is the core problem we're going to solve today. If you want to avoid becoming just another statistic, you can't just have a great idea. You need a roadmap, a proven plan to turn that spark of an idea into a product that genuinely solves a real problem for a real person. And that roadmap? It's a structured, six-stage product development process. Now, this isn't about killing creativity with rules. No way. It's about channeling that creativity, making sure every single step, from the first brainstorm to the final launch, is laser-focused on creating real value.
So, what are we really talking about when we say product development? Well, think of it as the entire life story of an idea. It starts as a sketch on a napkin, becomes an app on your phone, and then keeps evolving from there. It's the whole shebang, from that first flash of inspiration to the user experience, and critically, how it adapts over time.
And let me tell you, this is a total team sport. It really does take a village of experts. You've got product managers who shape the vision, designers who craft the entire experience, developers who write the code, marketers who tell the story. Every single role is a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so the whole journey kicks off with what is, without a doubt, the most important phase: making sure you are building the right thing in the first place. This phase is all about those first two foundational stages.
First up, ideation and definition. Here's the strategy. First, you go wide, brainstorming tons of different ideas. Then, you go deep, taking the absolute best one and sharpening it into a focused, viable concept. Seriously, if you get this part wrong, nothing else you do is going to matter.
Now, to come up with those killer ideas, teams use some proven techniques. You've got things like mind mapping, which helps you see the connections between different concepts. Then there's a SWOT analysis, which is a super quick way to size up an idea's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's all about creative thinking that's grounded in smart strategy.
I love this quote from Casey Sheehan at Work & Co. because it hits on the three essential questions you have to answer. You have to nail down your purpose, your function, and your plan. Answering these forces you to get crystal clear right from the get-go.
Then, in stage two, that great idea gets official. It's not just a concept floating around anymore, it's a concrete plan. This is where your team creates things like a product roadmap and a product requirements document, or PRD, which gives everyone a clear blueprint of what they're building and why.
All right, next up is phase two. You've got a solid plan. Now it's time to actually make the idea tangible and see if it can survive in the real world.
So we're moving into the design and validation stages. This is the fun part, where the product starts to take shape both visually and functionally. And, most importantly, it's where you put it to the test with actual users for the very first time.
And that leads us to prototyping. Teams usually start small with low-fidelity prototypes. Think simple sketches or wireframes, just to make sure the core concept makes sense. Once that's validated, they build high-fidelity, interactive mock-ups that look and feel just like the real thing, which lets them really dig into the user experience.
But the most crucial step here is validation, and that's often done with something called a minimum viable product, or an MVP. This is the most bare-bones functional version of your product, just enough to be useful. You give it to a small group of early users to get their raw, unfiltered feedback. It is the ultimate reality check before you go all in on building the full version.
All right, you've defined, you've designed, and you've validated. Now for the final phase. It's time to move out of the controlled lab environment and into the wilds of the open market.
This brings us to our final two stages: development and launch. This is where that fully vetted blueprint gets turned into solid, scalable code.
and is then officially introduced to the world.
So, in the development stage, the engineering teams are heads down, building the final product. And right alongside them, the quality assurance or QA teams are on the hunt, relentlessly tracking down bugs to make sure the user has a smooth, stable experience from day one.
And finally, the launch. But here's the secret. Launching isn't the finish line. It's the starting line of a whole new race. This is where marketing kicks into high gear. You start tracking your key metrics, and, most importantly, you begin that cycle of learning and improving all over again.
So that's all the theory. But what does this playbook actually look like in the real world? Let's take a look at a few companies who are absolute masters of this process.
Let's take Spotify. They noticed that our music taste isn't static. It changes all day long. So, boom, they created the daylist feature. Dropbox saw its users wasting tons of time searching for files across different apps, so they built Dash as a universal search tool. And Duolingo knew that the biggest enemy of learning is losing motivation, so they used gamification to make it fun. See the pattern? Each one found a genuine need and built a specific solution.
So what can we learn from all this? What are the big takeaways? First, always, and I mean always, put the user's needs at the very center of every decision. Second, work in short, flexible cycles so you can adapt quickly. Third, get feedback constantly. And finally, don't let a quest for perfection stop you from getting your product out there and learning from it. After going through all 6 stages, every strategy, and all those examples, what does it all come down to? What is the one single, most important mindset a product team needs to truly succeed?
This is it. You have to understand that a product is never really done. It's a living, breathing thing that has to constantly evolve based on what your users are telling you and how the market is changing. The goal isn't a perfect launch. It's the start of a never-ending journey of improvement.